democracy. By coming here tonight, you all are participating in democracy by exercising your rights to assemble peacefully, speak freely, and perhaps in some cases, to redress grievances. If you think you'd be interested in becoming a part of Force for Positive Change in your community, then please join us by becoming a member of Together Frankfort. It's a whole $25 a year. So if you're interested, you'll find Patty back there at the table by the door with more information, or you can go to togetherfrankfort.org and join. We'd love to have you. Also, one of the main missions of Together Frankfort is to promote voter registration. So I want to remind you that you have until 4 p.m. October 7th to register if you have not already. That said, the subject of this town hall meeting is the County Fiscal Court's proposed ordinance regulating the use of single-use plastics and styrofoam within the county and the city. First on the agenda, the county's solid waste coordinator, Allie Hall, will give a short presentation about the issues surrounding the proposed ordinance, after which I will call on audience members wishing to address the panel with a show of hands. When called on, you will have 3 minutes to ask a question, voice a concern or opinion to the panel. One or more panel members will reply. When I call on you, please stand, state your name, and any other information about yourself you think is relevant. That's my time. During this process, I would urge everyone to observe the appropriate decorum and respect. At this time, I will hand it over to Judge Executive Michael Mueller to introduce his panel and make a short statement, which will be followed by the presentation, after which we will begin with your questions and comments. Again, thank you all for coming. Judge.
Thank you very much. Oh, that's loud. So listen, my name is Judge Executive Michael Mueller, and I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I do want everyone to realize, this is not a true fiscal court matter at this point. This is a solid waste task force and myself. So, I think the purpose of tonight is to have a community conversation. I know there's a lot of people that have said a lot of things, some correct, some incorrect. Hopefully tonight we can talk about everything and have a very adult-like conversation about the pros, the cons, and what's feasible today, and maybe looking towards the future of what's feasible down the road. So again, this is for me, hopefully a positive conversation tonight to be had. Allie here is going to answer all your questions, and this wonderful panel up here. I don't know a whole lot that they do, but I'm excited to be here. I'm appreciative of everyone that's here. I know there's people in this room that are for it, there's people that are against it, and there's people that really are just kind of questioning what's going on and what we're talking about. It started out as looking at eliminating single-use plastic bags. They're all over the place. I think everyone understands that, because Kroger's starting January 1 to phase them out also. So that's how the conversation started, to be honest. And then we started talking about styrofoam and the negative effects it has on our environment and things like that. So that's why we're here today. Again, it's a conversation. I want everyone that wants to participate. No question is dumb. Okay, so if you're sitting there thinking about a certain thing that you don't understand, please ask. That's why we're here. No other reason but to answer questions. So I'm going to introduce Birch Bragg. He's with Locals Pizza. And I think, what is it?
Locals Food Hub and Pizza.
Locals Food
Close
Hub.
enough.
Okay, I was close.
Locals will work.
Keenan Bishop, most of y'all know him. He's our agriculture extension agent. Allie Hall is our solid waste coordinator. Byron, Robert, sorry. He's with the city. He does all the solid waste for the city. And then on the end here, we have 2 gentlemen from Republic Services, Todd and Tim. So again, they're with the landfill that's out on 151, and they, as of last week, congratulations, they had bought out Central Kentucky Hauling that does all the trash and recyclable pickup in the county. So that's why we asked them to be here, because there might be some questions, not only about recyclable, but maybe something that has to do with a little bit of everything. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over, and also once we get going, and Allie's going to do the presentation, hopefully, get some things out there, but then we're phone going around asking questions, and we're just going to have some fun. So Allie, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Judge. Okay.
just have a brief presentation going over the motivations for proposing this ordinance and what this ordinance includes and doesn't include. Do you think it'll squeak if I get close to this? I'm scared.
Why don't you use this microphone?
Okay.
Just talk a little bit.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, can you guys hear me okay? Let's see. Space bar.
Hit the advance here, advance it. Working on those, working before.
Because we got the ball rolling. Why it won't work now? Okay, well, I can talk a little bit about a couple questions I get commonly before we get started. So this ordinance, as it's written now, it hasn't been brought to the fiscal court yet formally, so there's been no formal discussion or voting on it or anything, so we really value community feedback. We want to hear from everyone, pros and cons, any concerns and logistical issues, before we move this forward. But this ordinance, as it's written now, will affect all single-use plastic, like takeout items specifically, sold at a point of sale, so retail or dining checkout. So that would include plastic bags, plastic cups, straws, lids, cutlery, and clamshell to-go containers. A common question we get is about these plastic to-go containers. So these are plastic, this one's type 5, it's not recyclable in Franklin County, but this is manufactured by the retailer as dishwasher safe. So that's the big determining factor of whether something is labeled as single use. So if an item is designed to be used once, then discarded, even if you use it multiple times, some people, wash off their plastic cutlery and reuse it, or plastic bags, and you can get 2-3 uses out of them. It's designed for single use, so it's about the intent. These are designed for multi-use, so that's kind of where we're at in terms of determining what is and isn't affected by this ordinance. It's okay.
We're working fine.
So the first motivation I get calls to about why we propose this ordinance. And we have info up here, if you guys haven't gotten a chance to look over here. But the first motivation is to help our landfill last longer. And so,
Do you mind? Yes, you just use the mic.
Okay.
Your face right there. Yeah.
thank you guys. Okay, first motivation. Solid waste management plan. Benson Valley Landfill has an estimated 30 years of capacity left in terms of the space they have now and permitting. So that was what was reported to the Division of Environmental Protection. So anything we're keeping out of the landfill, we're diverting waste, helps our landfill life. It extends it, right? So that's one motivation we have. And it's kind of rare for a community to have a landfill in it. We're one of a handful in Kentucky who has a landfill right here in our county. Another motivation is plastic and styrofoam take over 500 years to break down. There's some studies, there's a QR code on the table. You can look through those published articles and research studies. But with landfill diversion, if something's not breaking down or decomposing at all, if it's litter, if it's in the landfill, it's not going away. So we don't want to leave this problem for generations to come. And if we think about it, the single-use plastic way of life that we're so accustomed to now in the history of the scheme of things is relatively new. A lot of you can probably think back to a time where it wasn't so common to get these plastic to-go items everywhere we go. And then upon reading more medical research, plastic and styrofoam is hazardous to human health. Again, I have sources linked over there if you guys want to read more articles. But styrofoam, when it has anything hot on it, is not classified as food safe. So that concerns us with the health of our community. And let's see, With microplastics getting into the soil, that affects agriculture as well. So there's studies that are listed on the table that talk about concerns with microplastics in soil affecting agriculture production, affecting the food we eat. And I'm sure you guys have heard the statistic about humans eating a credit card of plastic a week, especially if you eat seafood. So it's a big concern right now. It's a big conversation a lot of areas are having. And speaking of that, I think 28 states have legislation about plastic limitations. 11 states specifically have banned all styrofoam products. That's kind of a new one that's going around. And a bill is, I believe, in the Senate right now on the federal level to eliminate all styrofoam nationwide. And that they're hoping that will go into effect in 2026. So these things are on the horizon regardless with limiting plastic and styrofoam. And so we hope as the capital city we can be an example for Kentucky, and we can be an agent of change, and we can be a leader in this environmental and health issue that we're having. And then in terms of wildlife too, when we think about agriculture, Franklin County is pretty heavy with cattle producers, produce producers. Plastics harm and kill wildlife. So as a river city, we were really proud to have a river running through Frankfort. We want to protect the quality of river in our waterways as well. And I think I touched on everything. So you guys are welcome to grab this at our table up there. Sources are on the back. But that's just a few things I wanted to go over.
We're good.
And then you got it going?
Coming up.
And then I have a few more facts and statistics up here that I can show you guys. But those are our main motivations. And I want to say too, we're really excited about the amount of people here. Whether you're for or against it, we love having people civically engaged in this process. And that's the whole point of having a task force, having a town hall, so we really appreciate Together Frankfort for hosting us today. But we love to see people really show up in person. It takes effort and time to be here, so we really appreciate each and every one of you. And then, let's see. Keenan, do you mind talking about Farm City Field Day while we're waiting? About how it's a zero waste event.
Sure. And I can't tell you exactly the year, but back when Ms. Coward was our horticulture agent, she had the idea that and for those of you all that aren't aware, the Farm City Field Day is an annual event. This year was the 64th Field Day, and it's where it started out UK just demonstrating and showing off new methods of farming, new information, sharing folks that live outside of the labs and the classrooms, what's going on, the latest stuff. But anyway, it's gotten to be a big event in Franklin County. Pre-COVID, it was a lot bigger. 600-700 people would come every year. Excuse me. And when Kim Coward was our horticulture agent several years ago, she wanted to make the event a waste-free event. So it's already a difficult event because you're trying to feed people, 400, 500, 600 people out in the field. But Kim was pretty much committed to it. She did all the research. She gathered all the materials for us, and we've been doing it ever since with the help of the county and the city. It took at least one event, if not two, to teach everybody that instead of just throwing everything away, we have a recycle bin and multiple of those units that the city and the county provides. But one bin for trash, which we hope to generate not very much, one for recyclables, excuse me, and one for compostables. And since it's the only trash we generate is from feeding all those people at a remote location, we do have some trash. Byron kept the records for us this year. I can look it up and tell you if you like, but we do have some trash that is because of health regulations and everything, it comes packaged that way, so we don't have any choice there. But as far as serving and everything, we went to compostable plates, napkins, cups, and utensils. And then if everybody sorts everything correctly, we've got just a few pounds of trash, 10 pounds of trash, and then recyclables, 26 pounds of recyclables, 123 pounds of compost. So that's a good thing. And this wasn't a scientific study or anything, but when we started talking about doing this ordinance, and I know it's, not only is it a learning curve for everybody, but it's also impacts different people differently, especially businesses. And just out of curiosity, I asked staff to, and this is just for what the extension does for field day. So this is a one type of event. It's you know, not like a lot of the businesses that are here in the county, a one-off event. I asked staff to price everything like you were feeding 500 people for field day, like we did pre-waste free, and then compare it to what we use now. And the difference to feed 500 people through a food line, okay? So, and if you haven't been to field day, the meats, the proteins are grilled there, and then typically the sides are brought in. This year, they all came from the farm that we were on, so that was unique, but that's off the subject. So it's a food line, and you're served, so it's a unique situation. But the difference in cost for that was $15.45. And the only way we can do it is Farm City Field Day has no ticket sales or anything like that, so it survives solely on donations from the public and the community. So we have to be conscious of that.
Yeah, that's fine. A couple things in the presentation that I was going to show you guys are, we are, as a county, exploring options in terms of grant funding for an industrial in-vessel composter. So if we got approval for a composter in the community, this is like a shipping container model with like a rotating arm, and it heats up, and it fully biodegrades BPA, PLA plastics, and so bioplastics, corn plastics, anything that says BPA certified compostable on it would be broken down by this unit. So we are looking at ways to divert compostables from the landfill and have an option in the community. So I know there's some people and a lot of articles out there that have concerns about bioplastics if there's not an avenue to dispose of them properly, but we just submitted an application for a industrial composter. So that's pretty exciting. There's a lot of new innovation and technology out there. So when we talk about landfill diversion, we talk about reducing waste, there needs to be some motivation, there needs to be creativity and innovation involved. And every year we're seeing new innovation with different types of packaging out there. People send me photos of just like cardboard coolers instead of styrofoam ones, and different types of cups without straws where they have different drinking apparatuses on top. And it's just exciting to see what's coming out every year. Prices are going down every year, which is exciting. So we are headed this way, I think, globally, which is good news. So, all right, we can go ahead and get started.
I'll keep working with this, and if it comes up, we'll do it.
Thank you guys for listening. So you got one?
Okay, well, moving right along. If I could have a show of hands, people with questions? About the lady there in the green.
He's picking.
She's got the
got
mic?
green.
Okay. Hey, Kay?
Take it
We'll
away
get
from her. Sorry, Don.
prompts.
Sorry, Don.
Could you stand, please?
Oh, sure. So this is my first time ever at any of these events, so a little
And what's your name?
nervous. My name is Kat. I live over on Bridgeport Benson Road. I was just reading through this ordinance, and I just had a quick question about why some bags provided by or items that are intended to contain bulk items such as produce, nuts, grains, and small hardware items, why are those exempt from this order? Thank you.
Let's see. Okay, that's a very good question. I don't have a 100% answer for you, but that was what was advised to us by our county attorney when writing this ordinance. And this ordinance is modeled after other municipalities who have implemented this type of change. So this is what we're seeing in other communities. Sometimes with the bulk produce bags, it has to do with food safety within shopping in the store versus the checkout portion of the bags leaving the store. And so that's my understanding at this point.
Okay? Okay. This gentleman here in the front that was, we're going to do him first, okay?
Don Stossberg, I'm a rural Franklin County resident. I'm just sitting here thinking I don't have a big dog in this fight other than the,
Sorry.
I'm not, I thought my time was already up. But I used to work with the legislature and I also worked as a lobbyist. And one of the things I learned that almost any piece of legislation can go through the process if nobody objects. And this is a global issue, as we all know, but I can anticipate that the opposition to this is going to come from restaurants and grocery stores that are using this kind of plastic equipment that's not objectionable. So my question is this: does the county or the ordinance, has it given any thought to how you could take away some of this opposition by giving businesses some incentives, some subsidies for transition, that kind of thing?
Thank you, Don. I think that's a great question, and that's something the task force has talked about. So Allie is currently with our grant writer, Tammy, looking at organizations that might offer money as an incentive to help these restaurants and businesses make a transition. So that is on the table, and I'm not afraid to take it to the fiscal court too to see what their thoughts are if we were to move forward to just help the burden. And I was talking to Donna Hecker this morning, because I didn't realize Weta Michael has changed all her restaurants, all 7 restaurants in central Kentucky, to 100% compostable material. And so I asked Donna, she was unable to be here today, and I said, why? And she said, it's the right thing to do. And so then I went in, and Allie's going to talk to her a little bit more in depth and hopefully kind of do an interview with her about why and how. But it basically happened during the pandemic, and then they just kept it because it was the right thing to do, and they figured it's less than $1 a customer, and they figured a way to pass it through on. So, but answer to your question is yes, we are looking at ideas and funding opportunities to help restaurants and businesses that would qualify for it, yes.
Okay, Ms. Strong, would you like to speak? Diane?
I don't want to cut in front of anybody.
No, you're fine.
I don't really need one of these, but Diane Strong. I'm the event director for Bourbon on the Banks Festival. And I just wanted to share my experience with taking that festival from the first year into where we are now. I took the festival over after the first year. During the first year, I did witness a lot of garbage, specifically the single-use plastic sampling cups, of which last year, had we not used our glass, we would have had 60,000 of them that would go into the landfill. So, and that's what I saw falling out of the garbage cans. I used to be a competitive athlete. I've been to a lot of running events, lots of single-use plastics there, lots of festivals. I've seen the kind of damage that can be done and what comes out of them. So I wanted to make sure that going forward, we didn't have that impact. And we're on the river. I live on the river. If you live on the river, you know what it's like when the first rise comes up, and I call it the toilet flush. and everything comes down in a large mat that floats along the river. Most of it's styrofoam. Heavier plastics will sink, but the plastic bottles with a lid won't. Of course, if it was paper, it would biodegrade. But anyway, so all I did, when I went over, I think ignorance is bliss, because I just didn't know that there was going to be opposition, and there wasn't, believe it or not. I just requested that a sponsor, which is Liquor Barn, help pay for these glasses, because they're extremely expensive. It's a lot, it was the distilleries that were providing the sample cups. Now I have a harder time, the big thing is keep them at home. I don't want them at my event, or our event. But Liquor Barn has been on board every year. Every picture that gets taken, their little logo is on there. So they're covering that cost for us. It's a huge cost. The food vendors, the first event that I went to where I Crave in Lexington, I think it was the very first year, it's been over 10 years. Every single food vendor, and there are hundreds of them there, they are required to not use styrofoam or single-use plastics. And so I figured that was the norm. And so when I entered this event, I insisted it of all the vendors. And very little opposition. And now especially, they expect it because they go to a lot of events who require that same thing. Over the years, the price of those products have come down drastically. I know because I purchased them for our VIP. So I've seen that cost go down as well. One issue, for example, I'll try to be really quick. We have a cotton candy vendor that's coming to Bourbon Street on Broadway, and she wanted to have what you call the reusable tubs. It's not single use, but it's the heavy duty tub with the lid. You know what I'm talking about. They put the cotton candy in there. And while I understand that's not single use, but who here needs another piece of plastic in their cupboard that they're saving for a day? You don't. And I knew deep down in my heart that nobody's going to carry around that gigantic tub for the rest of the night. They've got food to eat, and they're going to go watch the fire performers, and they're going to go do all the kids' activities. They're not going to pack it around. They're going to throw it in the garbage. So you choose to do the right thing. And she's just going to give out the cotton candy, like make it live and hand it to you on a paper stick, like normal. Having that tub isn't going to be an option. And you know what? Nobody's going to notice. So making little decisions like that, even though it seems like it's hard, she was happy to do that. All I had to do was ask. So I don't know, that's kind of my experience, and I think that a lot of people appreciate it, especially now that they know what we're doing. All of the glass bottles, those get recycled. We work with the city. The city is amazing to get all those empty boxes that carry the bottles in. So it's doable,
Okay.
and I hope that we're setting a standard for some of the events that continue to happen.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Strong. Mr. Blanton, would you like to speak, sir?
Craig Blanton, Da Vinci's Pizza, and I was chair of the very first solid waste task force back in 2008. I live in Huntington Woods, so I'm neighbors with the plant board, with the landfill guys. So I've been all over landfill, and they've taught me a lot over the years. So I got just real quick questions, I believe. First, for the landfill. When it fills up in 2058, you'll be able to reapply to go higher, correct? To go higher, correct? More airspace, logically, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, that's an option. The reality is there's a southern area that we already own that you probably would permit at that point before you'd go up. Yeah, the south, yeah. It's called the old Ratliff property. You'd kind of go that direction first. I doubt they would go up at that point, but it is certainly possible, right?
Is that expansion, that south expansion, part of the 2058 calculation?
No.
So it would extend it beyond 2058?
Yeah, but it's not permitted yet, so that is possible, but it's not there, correct?
Okay, and then the other one to you guys, compostables and biodegradable products, once they're put in a landfill and covered and it's sealed, from what I've read, they require sunshine, sunlight, and oxygen, heat, and oxygen to biodegrade. Will you all see a noticeable amount of biodegradation when it's covered up under 75 feet of trash and dirt?
Well, you got the heat component,
Yeah.
right? Because you have that part of it.
What about the oxygen part?
Well, you don't want oxygen, right? We suck
Right.
out the oxygen because when you get heat and oxygen, you're going to cause a fire.
Exactly.
You know, what I will say is what we have noticed, and as a Huntington Wood resident, you noticed this in the late, like 2018, 2019 into 2020, we saw a spike in gas and it produced a lot quicker.
Correct.
And you used to take a couple years to install your gas system. And as more and more recyclables come out of it, it just means that everything actually breaks down quicker. And so you produce gas quicker, which is why we changed our gas system. We invested millions of dollars to make sure we're
Right.
capturing that gas.
Yeah, and it's good.
A lot better. Yeah, yeah.
It's
Well,
good.
I was going to ask you, right? Hopefully
Yeah,
you haven't
no-
noticed it in a while.
No odor issues, yeah, I hadn't for years.
Yeah, we
So
put
great
a
job.
lot of money into capturing
Yeah.
that. So we still see things break down a lot quicker the more you get the plastics out of it.
Okay. On the other committee members, it says, on prohibition, no retail or dining establishment may provide any kind of single-use plastic to consumers. Does that mean styrofoam's okay?
So styrofoam, polystyrene is a type of plastic.
I know. So you're just not using the word styrofoam?
So that's why we included it in section 1 enactment. And so we have all single-use plastic, including styrofoam. We wanted to specify it there.
I'm just looking under the prohibition part,
Okay.
number 5.
Any kind of single-use plastic. So that would include styrofoam, but we can
Okay.
talk to our county attorney about if we need to specify.
Cool, no problem.
Okay.
Now, we've had discussions, I met with Michael and Ally and Mrs. Rose, and I was probably the first person to meet with y'all on this maybe. We use styrofoam in our restaurants, and we use plastic, of course, but will this also go with Kroger, Walmart, Aldi's, and the new Target when it comes into paddocks? Meaning their steaks, their beef, other products they have in the store have a plastic base and they're wrapped in plastic. Will those also have to change? Because if it's got to change for me, I would think to be fair, it's got to change for the big guys too.
Yeah, we definitely agree. We would love to see reduced plastic in all businesses. For this one, it is during the...
Well, this is styrofoam specifically, what I'm asking about.
Okay, so it would affect them at the point of sale with the plastic bags. And then in exemptions, let's see, does it talk about, it says frozen foods, meats, or fish, whether or not prepackaged. So that is one of our exemptions as it's written
So
now.
you're exempting the big guys, but you're going to hit the little guys then?
It's just focusing on anything at a
Styrofoam.
point of sale.
Yeah, styrofoam is styrofoam, whether it's at Kroger, or it's at Da Vinci's, or it's at his place, or it's any other place. It's still styrofoam, is what I'm asking.
We'll talk to our county attorney about if there's options, if other
Okay.
communities have regulated like the deli section. So
But
we'll
if you
see if we
exempt
can.
one, you should exempt all or do them all. It's either do it all or don't do it, in my
I
opinion.
think you've made your point clear.
Okay, thank you.
We
And
need to move
the
on,
last
though.
question, have you taken into consideration how this will affect the bottom line of the many locally owned restaurants in town?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Craig. As small businesses, we're always hyper-focused on cost savings in any possible way that we can get it. I guess one sidebar to that is that if we don't do this as a community and understand the challenge of this enormous problem now, who's going to? Are we going to kick it down the road for 5 or 10 years? And so I think it's important that this is brought in front of the community as a discussion. I think in an ideal world, at the federal level, that this would be considered. There would be subsidies in place that would prioritize the use of environmentally friendly plastics and products, compostable products, et cetera, to give alternatives across the board to manufacturers so that we as the end-use retail consumer could have access to those products, and that would be cheaper, and then the other products which are not biodegradable would be taxed. That's an ideal world. Unfortunately, we don't live in that world. So how do we handle that as small business owners? it definitely does add a cost, and that very much depends differently upon restaurant to restaurant. We don't have any styrofoam in our restaurant. We already use biodegradable products for our salad containers, for our soup containers. We use, with this ordinance specifically, we would have to replace ramekins and lids. We'd have to replace cutlery. We'd have to replace our beer cups. And there is a cost to that, for sure. For us specifically, we're very mission-driven and core-focused in every decision we make. And so it is something that we are very passionate about doing for our own company. And we are opening a second location in Louisville here soon. Once we had this conversation, we started thinking about, okay, if this is coming down the pipe in Frankfort, we can change Frankfort retroactively, but we have a chance right now to start Louisville off on the right foot. And so what we did is we started doing the math on plasticware for cups specifically. And we decided that it was better for us to go with a dishwashing machine underneath our bar, invest in glass racks and glasses, as opposed to single-use cups. A glass is 60 cents per pint if you buy it from Websteron or somewhere. If you get them for free, which is a real possibility from the distributors and the craft beers and whatnot, that helps significantly. And so for that specific item, it's actually kind of a net break even for us to move to glass, and better off specifically for that item. But the reality is there is going to be cost to businesses, and what I also know is that post-pandemic, all of the compostable products were incredibly expensive if you could find them at all, because everybody needed them, because everybody switched to to-go. And in our research, we have found that there are numerous more products available now that are compostable, from sugarcane products on U.S. Foods that we've identified and costed, bamboo products, of course the compostable plastic products, which require the special composter in order for that to be effective. But there's a lot more products out there now, and those prices are much cheaper than they were 2 years ago. And so I don't know specifically with forks. We used 18,000 forks last year. When we did the math, that's going to cost us an additional $500 a year to switch to a compostable fork. And so for us, we're okay with that cost, and we can make that cost work. Will everybody be able to make that cost work? Maybe not, and that depends upon the business and the model. But if not us, then who? If not now, then when? Is part of that philosophy, to be committed to doing the right thing even when it's hard, because the right thing is always hard. What we have asked and the feedback we were asked to give, and what I think is fair, is exploring ideas to soften that burden on the in-use business owner and find ways that we can come together to help make that easier. One conversation we had with Tish in the chamber, the county and the public agencies are not allowed to promote private companies such as U.S. Foods or Creation Gardens or whoever your distributors may be, GFS, et cetera. But the chamber could potentially, and agreed that they were interested in this idea, though not a firm commitment, but they could help by compiling a list of all the products that could work within this ordinance, where to get them from, who the salesperson could be, and the cost of those items per unit, so that business owners like ourselves who are strapped with time, and if you add one more thing to the plate, sometimes that's the straw that can break the camel's back, and we don't even know how to think about it, because simply staying alive in today's economy in a small business is hard enough by itself, right? But if we can have other agencies and the community step in and help us make that transition, because it's good for all of us, there's a lot there to be said, and I think we really need to dig into that. So as a business owner, I would much rather have this ordinance come down the pipe, followed by resources, pass forward, contacts for these products that will be allowed under the ordinance, et cetera, as opposed to, here's the ordinance and good luck. And I don't feel that anybody has that intention here.
Thank you very much. No, we've got to move on, Craig, I'm sorry. We're going to do the presentation now.
I'm just going to run through, can you guys hear me? I'm just going to run through a couple of slides that we weren't able to see earlier. And then, is your question about the presentation? Okay, we'll get to you next.
We'll get to you as soon as the presentation's over.
Okay.
We have to stick this in the end, but we didn't get
Sorry, I'm just gonna show you guys a couple of things. We already talked about Benson Valley. Something I want to emphasize is recycling. So I just want to make sure everyone understands, a lot of people don't know this, I didn't know this until a few years ago, plastic cups, even type 1, are not recyclable. They're not accepted by the Lexington recycling facility where city and county materials go. So just type 1 and 2, plastic bottles, jugs, and jars, glass bottles and jars, any type of cardboard is good. All types of paper are good. Steel and aluminum cans, canisters and lids, food and beverage cartons. So those waxy cartons and like freezer boxes, we do take those as of pretty recently. But I just want to make sure you guys know that the takeout plastic clamshell containers, 5 years ago I was throwing those in the recycling bin. It is not compatible with machinery in most facilities nationwide, and maybe the Republic team can speak to that more. But so straws, cutlery, stirs, the things that we're looking at, they're not recyclable, especially in our community. And then I was talking about the industrial composter earlier, and this is the type of model we're looking at as an option, and it breaks down bioplastics completely. So that's an exciting option that we're looking at. We already talked about citizen health and the natural environment, and you guys might have seen that data before. And then, like I mentioned earlier, there are bills being discussed and being passed already about styrofoam and plastic nationwide. So just to reiterate, this affects these types of items: styrofoam cups, plastic cups, lids, straws, sauce containers, single-use plastic bags, and single-use styrofoam to-go containers. Why not bottles and other packaging? So we're focusing on what's in the county's jurisdiction, so we don't have the authority to control what manufacturers give us. So like people have talked about water bottles or Coke bottles, that's put in plastic on the manufacturer's level. We're looking at what is put in plastic here in Franklin County at a point of sale. That's what our community has direct control over. And then no businesses are specifically exempt. It's just any single-use plastic item at a point of sale, retail or dining, is affected by this ordinance. So I hope that clears up any questions you guys might have had, but I just want to show you the visual of the composter mostly. Okay, and then we have, please check out the table if you haven't already before you head out about different compostable options, different plastic, bioplastic options. Anything considered reusable that's machine washable is a great option as well. And thank you guys. Just wanted to touch on a couple of things, and we're back to questions.
Okay. Ma'am, lady in the back.
All right, I'm Jennifer Perkins. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Schools for Franklin County. And I'm not here necessarily to take a stance. I'm here to share some facts about how this will impact the school system. Christy Pritchett is our Food Service Director up here in the front. She's handing out, I didn't bring enough for all of the audience, but I did bring enough for the panel. So I want you to see that we currently use a lot of things that you have proposed on this list that are going to not be able to be used. And so those things include salad bowls, which are plastic, bento boxes, which are plastic, utensils, 4, 5, 6, and 8 ounce portion size containers, which are plastic, 12 and 16 ounce parfait cups, trays and bowls, which are styrofoam, cups, which are foam, baggies for fruits and vegetables, which are plastic, and then paper trays, 6 ounces, 8 ounces, 1, 2, and 3, but that's not a concern. We serve 8,000 meals per day. With that, facts of this that impact us. Styrofoam itself softens at 212 degrees. And so we don't serve our food at 212 degrees. So when we talk about the chemicals that are in styrofoam and how that's going to affect the people who are eating off the styrofoam, we don't serve food that hot that's going to cause that chemical to get into the students. However, we do use, if we were to switch to anything that's biodegradable, it does have PLA in it, and actually PLA has a softening point at 140 degrees. We serve our food at the beginning minimum of 145. So PLA does have that chemical in it, which means we cannot choose a PLA option when it comes down to serving anything that's hot. With that, we have federal guidelines that we are required to follow. Part of that is we have to provide cups to students for water daily. We have also just taken a pride in providing our students more delicious options, and do so by providing students a visual appeal to the food. So on your pamphlets that you see, there are lots of pictures on there, and that's what brings the students into the cafeteria in order for them to see what they're going to eat. We only can use also approved vendors. So we don't get to just go out and get any vendor. We have to use state-approved vendors that provide these things to us, which limit what we can actually buy. Some of our concerns, other than the visual appearance, are the transfer of germs, fruits, and vegetables. That health department also plays a factor into that. Our cost, the biodegradable cancer-causing agents. We also have the cost, so I'm just going to list out for you. We have salad bowls. If we were to switch our salad bowls to biodegradable, which is an option because that's not hot, that would be $23,000 per year. If we were to switch to, we tried to look at a washable bowl. We don't have that option because our vendors do not provide washable bowls that have lids. Bento boxes, $14,940 to replace those for us for 1 year. Again, we can't use a washable option because we cannot get bento boxes with lids from our vendors. Utensils, forks alone are $1.48 difference, which is $8,910 minimum for us to buy washable forks. However, with that, we're not even taking into play the accidental throwaway from the kids. So, and same thing for spoons, $8,910. So biodegradable is not an option for our hot meals, but due to that melting element and the temperatures that we're required by law to keep our foods. And additionally, with our vendors, our portion size containers that we're having to replace is $12,100. As you can see, there's more there. Our kids love the parfaits and the parfait cups. We have no options. Our vendors do not sell an option for us to use to give those parfaits to those kids. Like I said, if we go, so obviously if we have to go through with this and we go from foam trays to buying trays, that's $48,000. For foam bowls, $14,000. Moving from foam cups to washables, that's $18,000. And then we don't even have a solution at this point of how to bag up our fruits and vegetables.
Would you please come to a conclusion?
I will come to a conclusion. Okay, real quick. It would cost us $161,000 per year for staffing to replace 2 dishwashers. It's also $90,000. We have chemicals at $15,000, additional utilities I did not even include. So it's not that we disagree with some of your stance here. What I'm just asking is, perhaps we think about, I've never seen it, really, I was a principal of Collins Lane. I've never seen anyone come into our schools to educate our kids and educate our families on how to treat our land better, our environment better. How about we start there?
Thank you.
Okay, all I have to say mainly for that, I don't know if anyone else on the panel has comments, but we appreciate you coming out. Thank you for that breakdown. This is great for us to see. Judge and I have met with Mark Kopp, so we have had some discussions about the increase in costs and some issues with vendors, but it's really great to see specific examples of that, so thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to echo what Allie said. We did have a really good meeting with Mr. Kopp, and we've talked a little bit too. And again, this is a conversation. This helps because, we don't know a lot of those things. So, I go back to supply is one thing, but money to me is another. So I always tell people, and Craig and I have had this conversation, take money out of the equation. Is it right or wrong? So I think what we're trying to do is right, but we need to know a lot of these things from everybody, and that's why we're here tonight. So thank you again.
Okay, lady next to her.
I just want to say one thing where our money comes from through food service. It is not, I'm Christy Pritchett, the food service director. Our money does not come from general funds. Our money comes from the federal government reimbursement. So Franklin County Schools, 86% is free, 14% is paid. So 86% of our students, we get $4.43 per lunch and $2.37 for breakfast. For the 14% paid kids, we get 42 cents a tray 39 cents for breakfast. And not only is this paying for the food, the maintenance, the employee, their insurance, the maintenance, what people don't realize in Franklin County, I'm dealing with it right now, is that food service is a restaurant in the school. We have our own regulations, we have our own codes, and that's where my biggest concern is the bottom line. My staff, starting out, makes $13.92 an hour, and I am trying to get them to 15. I cannot do that when somebody's telling me that I have to go with this cost. $90,000 for 2 dish machines. Our high schools don't have dish machines, and they haven't had a dish machine for about 15 years. Our equipment is bad. I have just, like today, and I can show you on my email, I got 15 invoices from CSI, from maintenance on equipment. I'm very new at this district, 2 years in. The equipment has not been taken care of, and it's no fault to anybody, but it costs. And this is where I get my money, is from a kid taking a tray. I am so blessed sometimes when Mr. Kopp says, I'll buy you something. And he's bought me 2, he'll laugh at it. I bought her 2 tilt skillets, $46,000, just to let you guys know. And think about how much money, basically it's $7 a tray if a kid eats breakfast and lunch, and I'm paying for staff, food, equipment. $70,000 a week in food is what I pay.
Time.
Sorry. I mean, I'm just thinking about.
Well, I think the point's been made.
She just finished up mine, that was good.
We've only got an hour and 5 minutes and an awful lot of people here, sir, and you're one of them, and you're next. No, we'll be here till 7:30, and the library will throw us out.
My name is Joe Liedman. I'm with Stack's Barbecue. Thank you for giving me the time to speak. I appreciate it. You mentioned earlier that Franklin County would be the first county to implement something like this. I think you feel like that makes you Robin Hood, when in reality you're King Edward. This is a tax on small businesses, an attack on small businesses in our community. That may help you sleep at night, but it's just not the truth. All elected officials have a finite amount of time in their day. They get to decide what to do at that time. We all have a finite amount of time in our day. Some choose to use it in good ways. We actually got an email recently from Bullitt County. They're the 5th fastest growing county in Kentucky. Their elected officials have chosen to spend their time trying to continue that growth. The email attempted to recruit businesses to the area. It highlighted plots of land that they have for sale, other businesses in the area. And here we sit in Franklin County, one of the slowest growing counties in Kentucky. We all know that. And our individuals that govern us are spending their time doing this sort of thing. If you pass this ordinance, I never again want to hear another study about why Franklin County experiences such slow growth. You can't pee on your feet and wonder why they're wet. Sorry, I'm not a great public speaker, but I do feel strongly about this, so I apologize. This cost comes at a time when small businesses are facing higher costs than ever. Food costs, labor costs are higher than they have ever been. Our insurance, we learned last week, will go up 25%. Our margins are smaller and smaller. This tax comes at a time when more restaurants are closing across the country than any other time in our history. The Fed is expected to lower interest rates in the coming months. That obviously will lead to inflation. In one article about this proposal, a member was quoted as saying the cost of a straw would rise 100%. They thought that was a small increase. That's why they were saying that, from 5 cents to 10 cents. We went ahead and priced it out at our location. The actual number is 258% increase. You want to levy a 258% tax on small businesses in your community. This comes at a time when Americans have more credit card debt than ever. Chapter 11 bankruptcy filings are at their highest level since 2010 after the 2008 mortgage bond collapse. There's no way we can in good conscience pass this cost along to our customers, 258% on our paper goods. We can't do it. Large corporations will do it in a heartbeat. Stack's Barbecue has been in this community for 13 years. We've donated to every academic club, sports team, teacher appreciation week, project graduation, charitable organization, or church you can think of. It'd be impossible for you to have lived in Frankfort during that time and not have been to a fundraiser or event that Stack Barbecue has helped out with in some way. That's what small businesses do. We take pride in our community. We live here. We want to see our cities grow and become better places. This proposal will only hurt our business. It will hurt our business and it will hurt the community at large. There is a trickle-down effect to every feel-good legislation, which is exactly what this obviously is. The number of businesses in our community that benefit from Stack's Barbecue existence is vast. We paid David Herod to do our taxes, Abracadabra to screen print our shirts. We use local businesses on and on. When we close because of this, all of those businesses will feel that hurt. They will all lose that revenue. It's not just restaurants that you're attacking, it's every small business in Franklin County. If my words today seem harsh, it's because I feel like it's now or never. I have a 2-year-old and one day I will teach him when the big guy comes to push and wants to destroy everything you've worked so hard to create in your life, you have to stand up and talk or no one else will. And now is the time. I think, if Franklin County was experiencing drastic growth, these were things that we should talk about. If you all are the business owners of Franklin County, maybe you should show that you can run Franklin County. Show us some growth before you want to step in and run by business.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and my question, because I have to end with a question, right? Or I should end with a question. I have a bunch of them here.
Well,
did the Farm City Field Day have to turn a profit to feed your family? Is Liquor Barn going to subsidize the school dishwashers? Yeah, I mean.
we can come back to you if you find it.
Yeah, I'll think of the question soon.
All right. Hands, please. Sir in the back, you've had your hand up for a while.
I know many years ago, the smoking ban was coming across the state. It came all the way around the state, and then everybody saw it coming. So that it got voted in. You didn't see a lot of pushback on that. One of the big things they're talking about the landfills. I've had back when I was on fiscal court, and Jill and I, we started the recycle program for the county. In doing so, we saw that expand. It helped a lot. But one of the things people has reached out to me over the last couple of years, I've noticed people was saying, well, why is it they pull up on sometimes and dump both trash cans, the recycled net, both into the trash? And I've noticed people have started watching, and I've started watching it and kind of reported back. Seems like about once a quarter, you'll see that happen. I don't know whether maybe the recycle center's down or it's a holiday and they're trying to get everything done and they can't run 2 trucks, but I've noticed this about once in a quarter, they will put all the recycle and the trash all in that. So that's a large amount of trash that's recycled that's been going into the landfill. But I just wanted to kind of make people aware of that and watch that over the next few years, over the next bit, and you'll see that.
Thank you. You want to respond to that?
So obviously with Republic Services, right, we just took over the county trash and recycling program. What I can tell you, I can't speak to whether it happened in the past or not. What I can tell you is if my employees do that, my employees will not be my employees anymore. We will recycle what we recycle, and there are no other options to it. So I certainly can't speak to what's happened in the past. What I can tell you is if you're a county resident, and I have the exact same faith in the city, right? But as a county resident, I assure you, your recycling will be recycled. My employees know, for us, it's what's called an absolute, right? Sustainability is one of our #1 goals. And I know sometimes you think that feels weird coming from the landfill, but the more we divert from the landfill, the longer the landfill can last, the healthier the landfill it is. Some of you may be aware, right? We just opened last year, partnered with a company to open a gas to energy plant. So all that methane gas that comes out is being produced and turned into compressed natural gas, and it goes right into ASMIS's pipeline right here. In Frankfort, it's about the equivalent, they believe, of about 31 million gallons of gasoline out of our county, right? So certainly understand that concern, certainly have heard it in our area before. What I assure you is you will never see that from my company.
Would Marshall from the Senior Center care to speak?
Thank you. Hi, Marshall. First off, nonprofits do not have point of sale. Are they exempt?
Is there a specific, is there something specific you're inquiring about with the?
We're the Meals on
center?
Wheels program. We also provide congregate meals to seniors.
Okay. Do you need more?
It's something we can talk about and work through. I don't think we've talked about it in that depth. Again, this is a community conversation,
Yes,
so
okay.
great input. So please just talk.
So some of the things we use are biodegradable. Some things aren't. Some things, for instance, I'll just give you a single-use plastic bag. Those are given to us by different people within the community. We use about, I was doing some rough calculations, we probably used about 64,000 single-use bags last year. That's to give Meals on Wheels, delivering to the doors, people going through the food pantry, that type of thing. If I had to turn around and buy those, the calculation for that is going to be almost $4,600. We're already, Bluegrass Region lost $1 million for nutrition this year. Franklin County's never been on a wait list since I've been there, 11 years, to feed seniors. I will do my best not to ever have a senior be put on a wait list. This could do it. We want to do our part, we're trying to do our part, but when something like this is forced upon us, who is it going to hurt? It's going to hurt the seniors of this community. I don't know if you understand, but seniors are the largest demographic in Franklin County. Almost 39% are 50 and older. We need to realize that. We want to do good, but who's going to help fund us?
Thank you. Response?
Marshall, thank you. Marshall and I met the other day. We had a great conversation. We know the seniors are, and I'm going to brag on her for a minute. So we're part of the Bluegrass Ad, which is basically 17 counties in central Kentucky. And by far, Marshall and her team run the best senior center, as far as I'm concerned, in the state. We're the only ones, yes, give her a hand. Yep. We are the only county in the state that provides hot meals to our seniors. Everyone else does not. They distribute them. I think I was at a meeting yesterday, 157 meals a day. So I can't say enough good things about the senior center, but this is all part of the conversation. You and I talked briefly about this yesterday. I think it's all valid questions, and we're just going to hopefully work through this whole process together, and we'll see where it goes. So, but thank you.
Gentleman with the hat here had his hand up. Kay, over here. Kay's doing a really good job tonight, people.
Testing. I hate microphones. Hi, my name's Colin. I'm a new resident to Franklin County. I've lived in over a handful of states throughout the country, to include Nevada, Hawaii, Tennessee, all the states, Texas. And I'm really looking forward to investing in this community, and I'm hearing a lot of the same points, and I'm really glad I came because I've learned a lot from the two of you about schools. I'm so grateful for the knowledge you've shared with me. And I just wanted to maybe prompt, I don't really have a question. I get a lot of exposure to this panel, but we're really zoomed in on costs, and that's gonna hurt. No one's gonna say that it's not gonna hurt, but personally, I hate eating off of reusable plastics and styrofoams. It's disgusting, and there's certain restaurants that serve on styrofoams that I won't go to. I can't think of a person, I've never met a person, so correct me if I'm wrong, I would love to learn about that likes eating off styrofoam. It's like, oh, I'm going to go there because they serve it on styrofoam. So with that, it provides an opportunity. There's a demographic that's being missed out on that hates styrofoam or whatever. And there's a lot of organizations like senior centers and schools that we're not trying to appeal to a certain demographic. But that, I just wanted to sort of prompt everyone to sort of think about the opportunity. And that might be a little tone deaf because I'm not the one who has to fund a whole business, but I would travel an extra 15, 20 minutes to eat off of a sustainable piece of paper or whatever that I knew would be going somewhere. Yeah, I think that's really it for me.
Thank you very much. Okay. You, sir, with the hat.
The other hat.
Thank you. My name is Tim Ford. I live on Hickory Ridge Road. I live on the other side of the landfill from Craig, and they've always been a great neighbor to me, and I really appreciate what they do. My mother volunteers at the Senior Citizen Center. My wife does too, and my sister is the food service director there. This ordinance, whether you want to say it or not, and whether you think it's going to be, we all need to feel a little bit of pain, is going to affect our most economically disadvantaged people in the county. Our children, our seniors, our homebound, and us retired people. I'm glad to say that I am retired. That cost is going to get passed on to us. For sure, it will be. I go to Da Vinci's and eat pizza. I go to Locals and eat pizza. That cost, without a doubt, will be passed on to us. If you're willing to pay for that, my thought is, do that in your own home. Make that personal choice in your own home and in your own life, as I do, carrying recycled bags, etc. I think this ordinance would be, and the time spent on this would be much better served by attacking some of the things that we have crucially affecting our county. Why we don't have an auditorium, why we don't have an aqua center, those type of things. Why aren't we working on that instead of having a town hall with 100 people here talking about styrofoam plates, for God's sake? Let's work on things that affect us in our real life, lower our taxes, and take this, what I want to call noise, out of our government, and work on the things that we need and the things that we need to take care of. Let's work on making our Senior Citizens Center the best senior citizens center in the nation. What's going to happen is, if this ordinance passes, there's going to be a cost impact to them, and they're going to come to our local government, and they're going to ask you for more money. And I know what that answer is going to be from our local government. Sorry, we don't have it. You're going to have to figure out a way. Because that's what they've already been told when they lost $1 million from our local bluegrass ad. Let's work on something more important. Let's build an amphitheater in this city where we need to have an amphitheater. I voted in the last election for what I thought was change, and I haven't seen it. And I'm asking you, please, please, let's spend our time on something more important. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. General response.
Hey, Tim, great guy. We did leadership class together. I appreciate everything you said. I want to let you know, and Mr. Lieberman here, we are growing. You know, I just spoke to a tractor supply company that moved to Franklin County specifically because of the uprise. I met with AT&T last week who's looking at fiber, and they're looking at Franklin County because of the growth rate. We are very close to an auditorium. We're working with Kentucky State University with their pool. We're getting ready to announce a new manufacturing employer. We are working on a ton of things. Last night we put RFP out for a first park plan. We're looking at maybe growing our parks. So there's a lot of things going on. You know, I personally have been in the office a year and a half. You know, things move slow. You know, so I can guarantee you that in the next 6 months, this community is going to see a vast change in Franklin County. The city is working on a ton of projects too, so things don't happen overnight, and I know Franklin County has been stagnant for decades, you know, and I think that's why the people who are in local politics right now are in there to hopefully make a difference, and I do feel like we are making a difference. And as far as Michelle, I don't think we've ever turned the senior center down for money. We are a huge supporter. You know, I can't help what the higher ups do, but anytime she's come to the fiscal court, we have supplied whatever she needs, and we will continue to. So again, this is a conversation. Let's all work together, and we're going to figure out what we can do. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to get to the other side of the room, but before Kay runs over there, Richard, you had your hand up?
Richard Taylor, I just wanted to raise a question about seeking solutions. I think we can all see the benefits of this ordinance. We also see the detrimental side of it too. My question is, are there best use practices that have been utilized elsewhere to absorb some of these costs rather than to raise taxes? And I hope that out of this will come a serious appraisal or study of means by which we might find a solution that will satisfy everyone and work for the betterment of this community. One other point, I'm distressed that the number of people in this county who don't recycle. I go to the recycle bins a couple of times a week, and I put out my garbage about once every 3 or 4 weeks, really. It's just one person. But a lot of people don't discriminate between recyclable and non-recyclable stuff in this community. And it distresses me greatly, and it's out of ignorance, I think, out of ignorance and laziness. We've got to do better if we're going to be a responsible community.
Thank you, Richard. Respond? Commissioner.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for the school system showing up. This is a huge concern, and when I found out about it, one thing I did do was hit the streets and start talking to all of our local businesses downtown as to my bag of all goodies to see who was actually going to be affected in our downtown, and they are going to be affected greatly. And so my question would be, I didn't see a timeline in your ordinance of when that happens, and usually when an ordinance is passed, it's like 24 hours, you post it and it's ready to go. So I think some of the concern is how it was presented and it got out to the public in such a rush that like it was going to happen overnight. And I think this is something, I agree with Dr. Richard here to say that I think we all believe in this. I think it just needs to be phased in. Is there a phase-in opportunity? I didn't see that in the ordinance or anything that was attached. And what is the timeline for us to get there? I agree that in the next years up to 2058, yes, there needs to be something done, but what does that look like in moving in phases to get us there? And just also, let's keep in mind as officials, and I try to do it as much as possible, that when we have these big changes, talking to the boards and the senior citizens and business owners first and helping be constructed at the very beginning really helps and alleviates a lot of that confusion if we can get in at the very beginning. I also want to make one thing clear as well. I didn't think Byron got to chat earlier when they were talking about trucks picking up trash and taking the recycle and dumping in trash. A lot of our trucks do break down sometimes, and so I do want to make very clear, because I did follow up on some current concerns in the city. We do use trash trucks sometimes to pick up recycle if our recycle truck is down. So we've emptied out all of that trash, and then we've circled back around to get your recycle. It may look like a trash truck, but everything in it is recycled. So Byron, I know you didn't get to share that, but I do want to make clear, because we did do that a couple of times, and I followed up as a city commissioner on some of those concerns. So back to my question would be a timeline, and is there a phase in, or is this just a done deal, and when are we expected to follow that in the city and the county? Thank you.
As Commissioner said, that if you're in the city, a lot of trucks will pick up the same stuff they have dumped, and just because it has a garbage can on the side does not mean it's a garbage truck. That's why if you'll start noticing the distilled logos going on, all the trucks will have the distilled logo on them, whether they're a garbage or a recycle truck. Because as she said, I've had a lot of breakdowns in this last year, and it's been a pretty hassle and a headache trying to get everything emptied up and get back on the route so we can do the right thing and make sure all the recycle gets dumped up. And you know, we dump all our recycle in our building, then we haul it to Lexington, so we have a double checks and balances on it. So I know what is being picked up and where it is going.
Great question. And so I don't feel like this was dumped. You know, it came up, we talked about it in the fiscal court. I feel like the task force has done a good job reaching out to businesses, senior center. I met with independent schools, the public schools. We're gathering information. We're talking about it. You know, the original intent was to follow Kroger's step with the single-use bags. You know, January 1, and that's what they're going to do. So that was the original timeline. Everything else, we don't know. We're going to have meetings like this. We can continue to have meetings like this. If anybody wants to meet in person with any of the task force, and not everybody's here, but obviously, but we're open to talk. So that, you know, that's where we are. I don't want anyone to feel like we're jamming it down their throats. That is not the intent of this. The intent of this is to do something good for our environment, and we're not trying to put people out of business. We're just trying to do a slow, just community outreach. I think the comment earlier about educating people is huge. I mean, you know, our kids need to learn to recycle, so maybe their parents and grandparents will recycle. I mean, there's so many things to this, and everything's being worked on. This is just the topic we're talking about right now. So, great question, but thank you.
Barbara?
Yes, I just had a quick comment. Having had a family member worked in the recycling plant for a long time, and this is in response to your comment about the recycling people dumping stuff in the landfill. People put a lot of recyclable stuff in those recycle cans, and they have to be separated out. And it may be that each quarter they're gathering up that stuff that shouldn't have been in the recycling to begin with and taking it out to the landfill. And I just wanted to raise that as a point a long time ago before you talked about this in more detail.
Thank you. Hands, this gentleman here in the Symphony Stroll shirt.
Been a couple of comments relative to
Your
the
name,
compost.
sir?
Lee
Your name?
Colton. So there's apparently been a decision made by a composter, and I guess I want to hear the longer-term vision for compostable materials, and if there's a collection process envisioned and how all that's going to play out.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so we found out about this opportunity, and then we had kind of a short turnaround time to get the application in. So we're not sure if we'll get funding for this project. If we do, we'll find out January 2025. But that is a process with permitting and figuring out a site with the state. And so it's a 2-year project. But if it were to get funded by the USDA, what we have planned is a food waste drop-off site for residents and businesses to participate in. We hope to eventually expand that into compost curbside pickup would be ideal. In terms of the funding cap for this project, the USDA caps it at $400,000, so we weren't able to budget for curbside pickup at this point. But first phase is to get a site, to get the materials needed, to get an operator that we can hire. And then we're hoping to eventually, in the next few years in Franklin County, have a compost curbside pickup option would be ideal. But right now, it would look like a drop-off. Yep.
Lady here.
Yeah, to
I'm sorry.
piggyback on what Ally said, it is a long-term goal of mine to have a curbside compost pilot program. We had started out, and I hate to say it, but then 2020 happened, and that kind of threw everything off. And the gentleman from Republican can say as well that the truck industry has really hurt us. Since then, we have been way behind on equipment, and it hurt me in the long run. But that is a long-term goal, is to do within a year to 2 to do a pilot program within the city as a curbside compost with a select residential area.
Thank you. I'm Amy Lusher Smith, and I'm the owner of the Evergreen Southern Kitchen and Gathering Place out in Bridgeport. We're 2 miles from 151 and the place that we're talking about right now. We're brand new. We're 2 years this month. And so I just want to speak on behalf of restaurants and caterers, because we're very small. We're very new. I am not getting paid, nor are 2 of my staff, who are basically volunteer family members. So I just want to share with you from a new restaurant perspective. I echo everything that the restaurants have said and anyone in food service. It's going to be a struggle. When I created my business, our mission was to help bring life back into the Bridgeport community out in Franklin County. Don't know if you've been out there off Evergreen Road. Part of our mission was also to be zero waste or sustainable. It's in my very early notes. But as any of the restaurants know, you have to pull levers to be able to make payroll. And we've struggled to make payroll the last couple of months. I still do not take money out of my restaurant. You all know how this is as a beginning business. But yet we adopted the paper bags when Kroger adopted it because that's important to me. My struggle is being told that I have to do something because, again, those levers have to be flexible for me to continue to thrive and survive. I am trying very hard. We wash all our own dishes. We don't have equipment. I pay dishwashers, which are very hard to come by. Everything in our restaurant that you eat on is reusable. If someone comes into my restaurant, I don't see Wes Clark here, but if they pull something out of their bag and want to put their leftovers in it, I turn my back and allow them to do that. So please don't come after me, health department. Because I am fully supportive of this, and I understand the issues, I remember the smells. We live out there. I'm born and raised. Frankfort is my home. I'm investing in it. But as a small business who's still several years from being profitable, I need the flexibility that this is going to deny me. So we have paper bags. We tried paper straws. My customers sit so long they have to use 2, 3, and 4. We have just, in our catering, tried the bamboo products. My charcuterie boards, melt them. My clients drop them. They get wiggly. We're still looking for something like that, but right now I'm using 2. I wish I was Weta Michael. I love the concept behind locals. I want to be you all when I grow up, but I have to survive to be you all when I grow up. So what I would prefer is a compromise, which in my written comments that I sent to you all is really what I asked for. Some type of compromise for small businesses like myself. I'm going to be here. It took me, Michael, this wasn't you, but it took a long time to get my business up and running in Franklin County, and I tell people that because we're not small business friendly, my experience. This is going to make it worse. I need to support my family. I need to take a paycheck. My staff have to be paid. So I have 2 questions really quickly. One already got asked, the implementation timeline. We have a ton of product that we try to switch out for biodegradable, but we got to go through it. I can't afford to throw it away. And my second is, I'm assuming this applies to all catering as well, single use. Well, caterers use a lot of single use, but I have a food permit for catering. So my question is, does it impact caterers? Because I've not heard anybody speak for the catering perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a great question. So thank you to all the small businesses again for coming out, voicing concerns, and being civically engaged. We love to see it. In terms of catering, we'll have to talk with our county attorney about where we're at with that. I don't think that's been a specific conversation we've had, so thank you for coming out and asking.
Business friendly. One of this fiscal court's main goal was to make the Franklin County more business friendly. All our planning and zoning is online now. People can pay permits online. And so if anybody out there has any issues, please let us know. We have a new planning and zoning director, and we're focusing hard. But can you do me a favor and look back at that camera and give your company a pitch, because I think it's pretty amazing. 2 years. Let's give her a little round of applause there. Yep, so congratulations. And we're here to work with everybody. We're not trying to do anything. So I appreciate the comments.
Young lady in the green. That's my wife.
You don't have to say that. Okay. I'm Leslie Laird, and I'm a Franklin County resident. So I just have a quick point to make about our discussion so far, and then it's sort of like an idea or suggestion, maybe it's a question, so I've got one of each. The first one is, I'm not an attorney, but I read this. I think we all have, now each have a copy. I don't see anything that would make me think that it would apply to a nonprofit like the Senior Citizen Center or a public school cafeteria. I don't know why we're going there and talking about those things, because I don't see those in the ordinance at all, and I doubt it would apply to them because it's not a retail place. So that was my point. My suggestion or idea or question is, what about a co-op for small businesses? If you just need 500 cups, biodegradable cups for your small business, they're going to be pretty expensive. But if there were 20 small businesses and they purchased them together, you could get 10,000 of them, and that would be much cheaper per unit, and that would be a really smart way to approach this, whether anyone's forcing you to do it or not. Has anyone looked into that, or could we?
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't speak to the nonprofit side of that question, though I think there's a lot of merit there to trying to bifurcate, who this applies to. My understanding is it's anybody who has an inspected commercial kitchen. But I definitely see the value in talking about, who should be involved in this and who should, for sure. But that's not my piece to speak to. Regarding a co-op involved, when purchasing in bulk, you get lower prices for sure. The challenge to that, I think, is who would manage that co-op, who would place those orders, where would the product be stored, how would businesses like us order that in a timely fashion when we need it. We're typically on the fly to get a case of something very often if we've forgotten it or used more. So I think it's a great idea, and I've heard it discussed in conversations prior, but I think there's more to that from a management and cost side as well. And so, how would that be facilitated would be a big question. And I do just want to speak to the business owners out there. In the most perfect of conditions in this economy, it's hard to make money doing what we do. And I totally sympathize and empathize with all of these challenges. I do believe there are solutions out there to certain products that can help ease that burden or be a break-even cost difference. It just depends. For instance, we've researched seashell straws that hold up a lot better than the paper straws, and they're 1 cent more from what I've seen than the plastic straws. Well, yeah. So you just need to build a warehouse to store them, sure. No, I'm just kidding. But my point to that is that I think that there are some low-hanging fruit solutions to several of these products that we could replace. And so, I would, from everything that I hear from Judge Mueller and Allie, and these guys do not want to shut anybody's doors. The goal here is not to hurt any members of this community. I think the idea here is, can we do something that's environmentally sound, that addresses a huge issue, which is generational, and can we pull that off in a way as a community that we can do that together and soften the effects of that. So I think it's just important to keep that in mind. And I think that there's a lot of facts out there, and there's a lot of things that we can do to source certain products, and I love your suggestion. And I personally, we put a lot of time into looking at these products, and we're glad to share our resources with sourcing that we found for some of this. So I just want to say that, this is a complicated issue. It's really challenging. I think every business has their own things to look at and whether or not they can effectively achieve some of these things. And if you can, I think it's important to voice that, and I appreciate the ability to stand here and talk about this. And I don't want any businesses out there who can't deal with this to feel like they're being placed in a different category. I think it's important that we all be together on this, and I understand that it's a place where emotion can take over, and I get that because some people are fighting for their lives and their businesses, and they have their house mortgaged on the line, and that's just the way it is. But again, I don't think anybody sitting up here in this panel or in this county or who's supportive of this ordinance, who understands the value and the larger vision of it, has any intentions or would want to see any ill effects to small business owners who we are trying to grow and support in this business. That's my belief.
Thank you. Hands? Gentleman in the purple there, the glasses.
First of all, I'm wearing a Together Frankfort shirt, and I'm not speaking for Together Frankfort, just so you all know that. My name is Bill Clear, and I'm a Franklin County resident. There's a lot of things going on here, and predominantly is that we live in a changing world. And there's a lot of change that's happening, and we're going to see a lot more change. It's going to come a lot faster than we ever thought we'd ever see. So one of the best ways to handle change is a concept called differentiation. Differentiation says that if we can be different in a better way than other communities, then we will prosper. And that is what I think Michael has in mind for this community and the fiscal court. We have to accept that change is real, and we have to accept that something exists in this world called science. Science is real. It's not a fake thing that you see on the internet. Science is something that, there are chemists and people out there that study these issues. Plastic is harmful to people. Plastic is a known source of causes infertility in people. And this is a fact. Okay, microplastics are in our brain. We need to get rid of them. We have a lot more sources of plastic than just our styrofoams and those kind of things, but it's a good place to start. And there's a lot of ways to grow in Frankfort. I think the best way to grow in Frankfort is to make our schools the best schools in the state of Kentucky. If our schools were better than anybody else's schools, we'd have people moving here every day. We wouldn't be able to keep enough housing or enough businesses here to handle all the people that would want to live here to educate their children. I think that would be a good place to start. But at any rate, change is going to happen, and it's real, and it's going to come fast, okay? The oil companies ought to be paying for all this styrofoam and the cost of it to our bodies and our health. They're the ones that invented this product. They're the ones that shoved it down our throats, quite literally. And they're responsible for this. They're the ones that made this, and we're the ones that bought it, and they produced it and marketed it, and that's the reason why it's here. It became part of our economy. I understand that. But plastic is dangerous. And it not only is it making people infertile, it's making animals infertile as well. It's in our entire ecosystem. It's in our oceans. I'm dismayed to hear how much is in the fish. I already don't eat fish because of the chemicals. Now, I won't eat fish anymore at all because of the plastic in it. I mean, it's crazy what we've done to this planet. But somebody has to start doing this stuff. We have to start being responsible. And if we start being responsible here in Frankfort, Kentucky, other people will notice, and they will come here.
Okay.
I got one question about the landfill. I hope this practice stops. Anytime there's a holiday and the trucks come by after a holiday, they pick up both the recycling and the garbage and put it in the same truck. So I hope that practice is going to stop. I was glad to hear that we have a change in ownership.
I can tell you 100% will stop. If what's happened in the past, it will not happen in the future.
I guarantee you, I watched them do it. Anytime there's a holiday and they're running to get the next, they're working on Saturday because, there was a holiday on Monday. They come by, put both recycling and the trash in the same truck.
Point taken. Thank you.
All right.
Let's give the mic back to Kay. That's fine. Okay. Lady had her hand up here. Thank you.
I'm Joyce Bender. Bill pretty much said a lot of the things I wanted to say, but I am going to say that I voted for change. I voted for the judge, and I'm really glad to see some change happening. I agree with a lot of the other people who've spoken here that there needs to be a way to make this happen so that it doesn't kill these businesses. And I can't eat at them all as much as I'd like to, but we need to support them. But I also keep hearing people talking about, well, our kids. Well, our kids are the ones who are suffering from the most amount of this plastic accumulation in their bodies. We have to think ahead for those children. And the change in growth I don't want to see is a giant mountain over there at the landfill. Just because we have the right to build it higher in the future if it's permitted, I drive to Columbus, Ohio, and I see the size of that mountain. We don't want that to be, you know, the topography of that part of our county is, you know, well, there's this giant mountain of trash, because we don't want to make these changes. They're coming whether Franklin County wants to do it first or not. It's happening, as Ally was saying, at the national level. And why not start looking at it now, start phasing in so that the costs aren't overwhelming to businesses. And I like the co-op idea. You know, figure out a way to work together so that it's not all on one. And surely to God, there's warehouse space that can be dealt with. And again, some subsidies maybe to help with things like that. And let's have this change and be a leader, because it is coming. And why play catch up? And every time we hear people talking about children, they're the ones who are going to be living with the decisions we don't make. So let's make them.
Thank you.
I'm just going to say real quick, thank you very much. The co-op has been talked about in the task force quite often. When Craig met with us, you know, he talked about the same thing Bert said. You know, it's hard, everyone gets from a lot of different suppliers. So, you know, at last minute they need things, but I do think there's an opportunity to potentially come up with something that maybe 75% of their products from every restaurant are there. And then, you know, they'll have to occasionally maybe do something else. So it is something we're looking into, because I'm with you, you know, and I look out, you know, a lot of the states I believe that have already made the change are by the oceans, obviously. And so we're interested in, I think a lot of the reason the costs are higher now for those types of materials is because they're not selling any of them. So, you know, I think, you know, obviously quantity goes up, prices go down. So, you know, the thought is, if we were to change, and we need to have that conversation, you know, if they start buying all compostable material and stop doing the plastics and styrofoam, you know, what does the price look like then? If they're selling them 1 million of this now instead of 1,000, in theory, the price would change. So, you know, it's all great conversation, so thank you.
I just want to say quickly that Judge Mueller brought up the co-op idea a while ago. If anyone knows of a third-party group that would be willing to talk to us about facilitating that type of project, please reach out to myself or Judge Mueller, because I think we would need a lot of support to facilitate that, but we love the idea. So.
Okay, hands? Gentleman right next to you.
Thanks. My name is Ernie Lewis, and I want to thank the county and Together Frankfort for sponsoring this. It's a complex issue, and interests are being weighed against each other. One interest that I haven't heard was health costs. And I just pulled it up real quick. 2018 study was reported on by CNN that reports the health cost of these plastics at $249 billion in health costs from these plastics. And here's the quote from the article. We're talking about cancer, we're talking about brain damage in young children, we're talking about obesity and diabetes, heart disease, and early deaths in adults. Right now, the United States is not considering the cost to its own population of industries which continue to produce and consume plastic in the U.S. So when we hear a discussion of costs, I sure hope we also weigh the business cost against the very real health costs that are going on here with these plastics.
Thank you. Anne Marie in the back.
Thank you, Kay. I'm Anna Marie Rosen. I was briefly on City Commission, and I tried to introduce looking into an ordinance to reduce the use of single-use plastic bags. I could not even get a second. So I'm very, very pleased that we're having this discussion and that we're hearing from both sides about it. I agree with some of the other comments that were made that the cost of plastics, disposable items is not really represented in what we're paying for them. That we're tearing up the environment to bring petroleum to the surface, and then we're making it into things that have a life of maybe 5 or 10 minutes in a end user's hands. When I go on a walk, I pick up recyclable plastic. I find water bottles disposable water bottles, they're still 3/4 full. If someone didn't want it, they could at least pour it on a plant. But, and people don't understand what goes into recycle and what doesn't. So education would help. I talked to some friends who recently went on a trip to Japan, and they were looking around in a public space and said, where are the garbage cans? Where can I put this refuse? And they said, we looked at that problem and we eliminated them. We decided that if you bring some piece of something with you, you should take it home and put it in your own recycling or garbage, and that waste is a personal responsibility. I'm not in favor of going that far at this point, but it is thoughtful on their part. In Europe, they don't use paper towels. They use reusable rags for dusting and cleaning because their landfills are full. In the Caribbean, the highest point on many of those islands is the landfill, and it's from tourists who have use of disposable items that then end up in the landfill. So we're going to be buried, and our children, niece, nephews, they'll all be buried in our garbage. So it's good that we're looking at this, and we should take some active steps.
Thank you. Hands? Gentleman here.
Hello, I'm Rex Kilburn, and I am an attorney. I came by today actually with my wife. I just like to come to different events here in Frankfort. I'm fairly new to the community. Thank you. I came here to work about a year ago, and the only reason I even wanted to speak is because there have been several people who have asked a couple of questions about how things would be affected if nonprofits would be affected, and it didn't seem like there was a clear answer to any of that. I wanted to point out that in Section 4 of the definitions, subsection D, under dining establishment, any enterprise where customers dine in and or carry out meals. A dining establishment includes any entity with a food service permit, including sole proprietorship, joint ventures, partnerships, corporations, or any other legal entity, whether for-profit or not. That language would suggest that it does, in fact, actually would apply to nonprofit organizations. I wasn't sure if anybody was able to give a clear answer on that, and I didn't draft this ordinance, obviously. I just am trying to be helpful in that sense. As far as suggestions or opinions go about this issue, I don't particularly have a dog in the fight. I mean, I don't operate a retail business. I don't work in fast food. I don't work in the food industry. I'm fairly new to the community, but I'm pretty familiar with the aspects of the legal system as far as how things like this typically will operate. And I know that this ordinance was pulled from other ordinances and put together. I would suggest reviewing it for specific information as far as a more defined ordinance. And what I mean by that is there are certain things in here that are ambiguous enough to just create a problem in general. And if you want to go forward and do something that you feel is right, and I understand that not everybody does feel that that's right, and personally, I can't say one way or the other. I don't feel like I'm in a position to decide what's right on that. But I think if the path forward is with the best of intentions, then it should be taken with the most care. And to do that, it requires an extreme attention to detail and very clear, defined terms to the ordinance. So that's literally my only suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So again, welcome to the community, and we appreciate you joining the task force to help us with this ordinance. We look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Okay, Mary in the back?
I was just curious about one of the exceptions because I couldn't picture what it meant. And it's the one about an exception for bags provided for items that are agricultural tax exempt. I didn't know if that was talking about things that are sold to farmers because then they're agricultural tax exempt, or if it's what farmers sell to others, like the farmers market farmers. I would just know what that meant, so I was curious. It's the very last exemption, it's E. So I'm looking at right above Section 7, enforcement, the last line before Section 7, enforcement. Under exemption says bags provided for items that are agricultural tax exempt.
I'll make an attempt out of my league, but all I can do is basically define an ag item that is tax exempt would be if a farmer applies for a tax exempt license through the Kentucky Department of Revenue, then they can purchase farm input items. So I would assume that this would apply to excuse me, bulk items like 50-pound bags of feed, bags of mineral, those type things that would be considered tax exempt. Does that get close to answering your question at all?
Yeah, I mean, I looked up what is this agricultural tax exempt thing, and I just couldn't figure out if it was what farmers buy or...
Yeah, and I don't know exactly what the law is or how it's defined or whatever, but there's items that a person who is not an agricultural producer, you could go to the store and you purchase it and you pay sales tax on it. But if you are agricultural tax exempt, registered with the Department of Revenue, then you don't pay sales tax on that if you're producing an agricultural commodity. And you have to prove that you're actually producing an ag commodity to be exempt from that.
Okay. Mr. Stumbo in the back.
Hey, thanks. I'm David Stumbo. I'm with Together Frankfort, but not speaking on the behalf of the organization. But a couple of thoughts and suggestions for the panel and for the county is to be a little more considerate of the small businesses. So maybe start halfway, just focus on styrofoam, for example, just styrofoam. Like the gentleman spoke earlier, not many people like that anyways, right? So just sort of a measured approach. Maybe consider excluding certain smaller businesses based on size, or if they have a single location or they've only been in business so long. I'm not really sure what the metric would be, but come up with a metric that seems to be palatable to most. I'm just thinking in terms of receptivity. Consider incentivizing this. You know, what could you offer businesses as an incentive to go to recyclables? And then, and this is probably the most painful for you guys, you know, at the state and federal level, there'll be a cost-benefit analysis on a new law or a regulation. So consider actually putting those numbers that we've all thrown out there in writing so we can all see them. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, as there's just one hand up, I'm assuming that the man from Stax had found a question. Please.
Thank you. I just wanted to circle back on some of the things that other people had mentioned. A lot of talk about how plastics aren't good for our health. I don't think anybody can argue that. I don't think that this is going to solve what you think it's going to solve. The way that I understand this, you walk in Kroger, walk through Kroger in your mind. You walk in the produce section, there's the strawberries in a plastic container. The lettuce is wrapped in plastic. Go over to the cheese, it's wrapped in plastic. Go to the deli, you get it in a plastic bag. Work yourself around to the cookies in a plastic container. Let's go to the meat department. Everything's on styrofoam wrapped in plastic. They don't want to take on Fortune 500 companies that produce all of your food. This is a tax on small business. This will not eliminate plastic in your life. The people that are worried that plastic touches all of our food, as we all should be. Microplastics are definitely causing infertility in our country. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. But I don't think this is the attack on plastic that we think it is. This is a tax on small business. This is a tax on small businesses that can't afford the attorneys to back them up, like Procter & Gamble can when they put that box of cereal in the cardboard box and sell it at the store. The box of cereal that has the plastic bag in it with the cereal in it. I think the gentleman in the hat made the best point against this. In a free market economy, consumers should decide where they want to shop. My wife won't eat at Jimmy John's because she doesn't think big game hunting should be allowed. You should decide where you want to shop, businesses that you want to support. And by that same accord, businesses should be able to decide what they want to provide to consumers. It's a dual side to that coin. It's not up to government to decide what businesses sell in our economy. That's the great thing about the United States. Businesses should decide what they sell. Consumers decide whether they want to frequent or buy things from that business. A lot of people talked about education. Louisville had a similar proposal for this, and instead of taking this route, they chose their constituents could be educated, and they've seen great results with that. So while this board obviously doesn't think that the constituents are smart enough to absorb that education, other counties have decided that they are and don't have to take this sort of route. This tax on small businesses will be passed along to the most vulnerable people in our community. All of us in here seem like we may be of a social status that can absorb a small increase in cost from what this would levy to small businesses. Not everyone in our community is so fortunate. If you think that businesses in this community won't have to pass this tax along to consumers, you're wrong. And this is going to hurt those people of the lowest social class that already struggle in our communities. That was my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. With that,
Now, I will say this, not an attack on a small business. Now, we're not federal government. We cannot go out here and dictate what Kroger sells, that puts their strawberries in, their cookies, or whatever they're in. We can only regulate what is sold in Franklin County. We cannot dictate what it comes in that's pre-manufactured. That's the information that I've seen so much online. That, like your Pepsi bottles, your water bottles, we cannot regulate that. Now, if we want to, if the ordinance does pass it, whenever it is, that it's on the retail end. If it's a styrofoam cup, you use a plastic cup. I mean, use a paper cup. It is not a attack on small business. I don't know how people, you keep beating this dead horse. I know you're sitting there smiling about it, but it is not an attack on small business, because if it's just like the credit card. How did most small businesses do with it when the credit card fees increased? They passed it on to the consumer. I'm paying 3% more every time I go to most restaurants now, I've noticed. That's just as a member of the task force, that's my point on it. We cannot regulate what these manufacturers do, get their products in.
We're hoping to see a change on a federal level, but this is just what is in our jurisdiction. But yeah, thank you guys for your comments.
I've got to close out. They're going to kick us out of here, Craig. Sorry. I'll turn it over to the judge to make a final statement and bring us to a close here.
Again, I truly appreciate everybody coming out tonight, everybody watching on TV. This is a huge thing. We're not trying to hurt anybody. We're not trying to do anything overnight. We're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. This is a process. If we do something, we do something. If we don't, we don't. This is all about education's a huge thing. I think everybody can agree with that. We need to educate people about, first and foremost, recycling, but then how to be healthier and how to be better neighbors. You know, I think that's where we are in this world right now. It's a crazy time. I don't want this to look like a government overreach by any means. We're just trying to have a community conversation, and if people want to have another forum or open house or whatever we're calling this, we're all game. You know, I think we want to do this together. I appreciate Allie and Together Frankfort putting this on. I think the gentleman talking about legality things, you're absolutely right. You know, we tried to put something together as a starting point. You know, where we go from here, community decides. You know, and I think that's truly where we are. At the end of the day, the fiscal court would have to vote on this. You know, are they all on board today? No. You know, they're not. But as we all work together and talk about this more and more, we'll see where it goes. So I appreciate Jeff moderating, Kay doing a wonderful job with the microphone, like nobody's business. And again, I appreciate my office is always open. Email, call. I think having good community conversations is healthy. You know, I would like to start doing it on more than just this. I think it's important for everybody to get together and talk. And we should be able to listen to both sides of the aisle. I think where we are right now, where it's right or wrong, it's left or right, has gotten us in a bad spot in this country. So, Jeff, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, first of all, big hand for our panel here. And a big hand for yourselves for taking the time to come out and speak freely. And a super big hand for Channel 10 and this incredible library and the facility that they offer us. We're so lucky to have these people. Okay, we'll do this again soon. Think about joining us up with Together Frankfort, and have a good night. Safe drive home.